So I don't have an addiction per se, but I have.
Okay, we have started.
Oh, okay. Then let me hand it over to Morioki. Morioki, welcome.
Thanks, Dorcas. Okay, everyone. This is SAS-K for Skeptics and Atheists Society of Kenya. Thanks for tuning in. So today, we're talking about addiction. In fact, it says recovery from addiction, whether it's alcohol, drugs, food, social media, gambling, sex, and porn. So thanks for joining us, and feel free to like and subscribe. Yeah, so welcome everyone. So the first question I want to ask, for me, when I hear addiction, my mind goes to negative mode. Immediately it goes to negative mode. So the question is there a thing like a positive addiction? Like, can it be I have an addiction that's positive, that's harmless? Is that possible? Thanks. You can raise your hands. Is there a positive addiction? Can you have a good addiction, or it's just negative? Like for me, it's just negative all the time. Are they good addictions? Okay, Charles, go ahead.
I think the term addiction has a negative connotation. I think maybe what you're talking about is a habit. So you can develop a good habit. Maybe you are not exercising, so you start exercising. Like the friend of Dorcas, she starts exercising, and then she gets used to it and develops a good habit. But you wouldn't say she's addicted to exercise. I don't think it would make sense. She'll just have developed a habit of a good habit that she should have developed, but it wouldn't be an addiction. I think like let's say if someone was to say I have an addiction, there's no one who will be thinking of something positive. But if it is something positive, then we would say he has good habits. So, okay, I think that's what I would say.
So, Charles, addiction is just negative, Plain, that's plain and simple. It's just something negative,
Yeah, I just I wouldn't understand someone saying, "Oh man, this guy has a very positive addiction." I think the term would be habit, as he has developed good habits.
Yeah. Okay, fine. Thanks, Doc. Thank you, Docas.
Yes, I agree with Charles Wandalo. I think by definition, an addiction must cause harm. It might be physical harm to your body, or it might be financial harm, it might be psychological harm, but an addiction must cause harm, and addiction must be something you cannot stop. It's compulsive. Nobody wants to do anything that they can't control. Once you involuntarily do something, then that is automatically negative, because as human beings, we desire to be in control of our own actions. So that is what I would say. And I would also add that the type of addiction is of no consequence here. It doesn't matter what kind of addiction you have. Even food. Food is supposed to be a basic need. Without food, you cannot survive. Yeah, I had somebody on my YouTube the other day who was addicted to water. We require water for survival. 80% of our cell is composed of water. But that person was addicted to water. She would just keep drinking water, so that her brain would become like a zombie. She wanted to check out of reality. And eventually that killed her. It's like she drowned herself. So it doesn't matter what somebody do, even that exercise, if you overdo it, like every waking moment, you are just exercising, you can't work, you can't do any other thing, you are just exercising, that is detrimental to you. It is causing harm. It's an addiction. So I think addiction negates the positive aspect. It is a negative. phenomenon.
Yeah, thanks, Dorcas. In fact, Google says it means physically and mentally dependent on a particular substance. They are physically and mentally dependent on a particular substance. Okay, so I hear you guys. So Charles, because you're here, this question was to come later. But now, because you're here, let me just ask it now. So Charles, in my view, addictions like drug addiction, alcohol, in fact, all addictions show that the human being is not designed intelligently. Because now I hear people take drugs and overdose till they die. Now, for me as an atheist, I see it proves that the human body is not designed intelligently. So, Ondalo, just answer that, please. What do you think? What's your take on that?
Sorry, I didn't hear the question clearly.
Yeah, I'm saying for me as an atheist, these addictions prove that the human machinery is not designed intelligently. Because how can you take cocaine and get hooked on poison till you die? Alcohol, you take alcohol, your body is hooked to poison. So it shows like the human body is not designed by intelligent design. It's a random thing. Does that make sense? It doesn't make sense to be hooked on poison. Did you get that, Charles? Did you get the question?
Oh, sorry. In fact, I was speaking while muted. Oh, but I don't think that's a case against intelligent design. I guess maybe that would be just a case for things that have been designed, not going against design. So, for example, I was thinking about how I have a vehicle that should be putting super petrol on it, but one day I decide to put diesel or water, and then I say, look, these guys from Japan didn't design this vehicle well. The vehicle stopped. Well, the only thing it proves is that I am a foolish guy who doesn't follow instructions, and instead of fueling my vehicle with petrol, I was fueling it with water. So the problem is me, the person who's driving the vehicle, not the designer from Japan. And I think I would say the same for us. God created us well, but we decided to do our own thing. And in fact, all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. Now there's a righteousness apart from faith that has been made so that there's that one God and one mediator between God and man, the man Christ Jesus. So that's where he comes in to bridge the gap that we made. So like, I would blame us. We're the ones who, and in fact, it's not even just everyone really, as I said even initially, regardless of where people come from, people decide to do their own thing. They get messed up. Instead of blaming themselves, they blame God. Although I will agree that there are sometimes that some situations are more complex than others. That's why this is a very difficult conversation. But generally, we make the wrong decision, and then it's easier to blame God than ourselves. Because that's what I would say. I understand many would disagree, but that would be my submission.
Okay, Charles, today you're here for how long? You come and disappear. How long are you staying today?
I am an old man who sleeps very early.
Okay, just don't go fast. Hang in there for a while. So I want to ask the team today. So when you hear the word relapse, like somebody has relapsed, what goes through your minds when you hear the word relapse? Anyone? What does relapse mean to you? Anyone? Relapse. Like someone was an addict, then they got cured, then they relapsed. Okay, Maestro. Okay, Maestro. Yeah.
You are saying the meaning of relapse.
Yes. Yeah. When you hear the word relapse, what do you think of?
Relapse. What I know about relapse is something you scheduling. Okay. Don't know. For lack of a better word, you had a schedule for a recovery, but then along the way you go against that schedule, or maybe something happens that interferes with the schedule. I could have used a better word, but maybe schedule is the word maybe that I can use for now. Because I
Okay.
also, me I'm as you know, I'm a fan of football. Some footballers get injured when they start on their road to recovery. You hear that this player his injury he has undergone not to undergo, but a relapse has occurred. So he was supposed to recover fully maybe next week, but then because of that relapse, another 3 weeks, he'll maybe come back in another 3 weeks or 1 month. So that's how I understand by relapse.
Okay, thanks, Maestro. Because for me, when I hear relapse, it's like somebody was cured from addiction, then he goes back to the addiction. So that means he or she relapsed.
Mm,
Like you're going back, you were clean for a while, and then you've gone back. That's my view. When I hear relapse, that's what I think of. Okay,
okay.
Dorcas. Yeah.
But
Yeah, Maestro, yeah.
Buruk, what if maybe someone had you don't just stop an addiction like just that way. Maybe relapsing is that someone had a plan of completely stopping the addiction to something. Maybe if it's an alcoholic, instead of drinking on Monday to Sunday, maybe he decided I'll be drinking only on Friday, then I'll reduce to okay, I'll be drinking only on Saturdays and Sundays, then I'll reduce to only Saturday, then I stop. But maybe when he reached only drinking only on Saturday, he relapsed again and he started to drink drinking from Monday, Tuesday. So maybe that that is that I understand by a relapse. You had a plan on stopping this thing, but then along the way, uh, you you went back to your old habit. That I think is what it can be explained when you are talking about addiction. Because
Okay, thanks, Maestro.
you can't just be an alcoholic that you've been drinking Monday to Sunday every day. Then today you say and then today you just stop like that. From today I'm not drinking alcohol, and that's it. Maybe you can also be taken to a rehabilitation center. Maybe in that rehabilitation center you start you begin your journey to non-addiction, but maybe when you are just about to complete that journey, you start again. Okay, that's how I understand. Yes, Buruk.
Okay, thanks, Maestro. Dorcas.
Okay. Before I answer your question, I would like to respond to what Charles Wandalo said. Because you asked him, isn't the idea of addiction proof that we are not intelligently designed? And Charles Wandalo did some psychological maneuvering and tap dancing, which is typical of Christians and believers in general. He said that it is our fault. We made those choices to engage in addictive behavior or to take those addictive substances. So it's our fault that we are in this state. However, I disagree with that interpretation or that perspective because it does not absolve the designer from having that provision within us. If we are assuming that we have been intelligently designed, actually, I believe we have been designed, but by a process, the process of evolution. That is what designed us. It's not an intelligent designer that designed us, because it has taken a series of iterative steps to get us to where we are as a species. And that is a process. So there's still a mechanism mechanism that led us to where we are. But that mechanism is natural. It's natural, and that is why it is so vulnerable to mistakes like sickness or addiction. And now that I've mentioned that word sickness, I have to bring out the concept of addiction being a sickness. When you become addicted to a certain substance, it rewires your brain such that you cannot behave normally. Your actions now no longer become something you can control. They become compulsive. I'll talk a little later on about dopamine and its role in addiction, then recovery. Dopamine is a brain chemical, it's a neurotransmitter that is chiefly responsible for addictive outcomes. So it's an illness. Somebody needs assistance in order to get out of it. I don't think we should blame a sick person when they fall sick. If God existed and he was the one that designed the human mind, then he would not have allowed that capability within our brains of us getting rewired, of the brain getting rewired by an addictive substance when you take it to the point that you can no longer control your actions. So the fact that this happened under his watch and he was not able to anticipate it, given the fact that they say he's a good God, he's a benevolent, he's an omnibenevolent God, then that automatically negates that trait and his existence in general. If you really are a caring father, then you would do your best to ensure that your children are in the best condition ever. You don't just watch them and say, it's your fault. It's your fault that you are sick. It's your fault that this bad thing has happened to you. Yeah, deal with it. No, it doesn't absolve God from the situation. So that's what I would tell Charles Wandalo. Now, on relapse, you asked us to define what do we understand by relapse. I think Eston has the idea. A relapse to me, in layman's terms, is backsliding. When you are on the road to recovery, and then you go back to compulsive engagement in the behavior, if it is a behavioral addiction, or compulsive use of the substance, if it is a substance addiction, compulsive use. So I have to qualify my response by stating that word, by emphasizing that word compulsive, because there is a different model of recovery, which is called harm reduction. And I think maybe that was what El Maestro was talking about, that there are some people who are not totally removed from their substance of addiction. You don't go cold turkey. In certain programs, they use the harm reduction technique where they give you very minimal access to your drug of choice or your addictive behavior of choice. You're allowed to engage in it under controlled conditions. But then the relapse will happen when you go back to compulsive use, uncontrollable use of the substance. Now it is no longer controlled the way it was intended in the harm reduction model. Of course, going forward, maybe I'll tell you guys my perspective on harm reduction. I really have my doubts about it because I think it's a slippery slope for several people. But all in all, a relapse is backsliding to a place where you are compulsively taking the substance or behavior you are addicted to. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Dorcas. In fact, Google says It's it means after an improvement, you go back deteriorating. It's deteriorating after some improvement. You had improved, then you went back to the habit. You went back down. Yeah. So Charles. Charles, you can say something. Charles.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so I guess I was, I guess not necessarily on a relapse. Although, like, I guess maybe I wanted to read on something that I felt, I guess maybe there's much that can be said about this. I guess maybe someone can think that the Christian position would be trying to beat up on someone who has an addiction or something. That's not even what I was saying. Like, in fact, what I would say is this is a very tough topic, especially for someone who is struggling or has struggled for a long time. And whether they're even a Christian or not, if they are struggling, it's a tough one. And I guess maybe it's not even something that you just speak to someone or just give them like a quick, simple response on. I think it's doing life with someone and seeing like how they got to where they're at, and, where they're going and what's going on at the moment. But with that said, there's a way that the Apostle Paul in the Bible put it, or just general struggle that I felt like reading. I understand that the Bible is probably not the first place to go to for many here, but like I felt it was interesting how he put it here. So like it's in Romans in chapter 7. So verse 14, he says that, for we know that the law is spiritual, but I am of the flesh, soul, and the sin. So just listen to how he puts it. For I do not understand my own actions, for I do not do what I want, but I do the very thing I hate. Now, if I do what I do not want, I agree with the law that it is good. So now it is no longer I who do it, but sin that dwells within me. For I know that nothing good dwells in me that is in my flesh, for I have the desire to do what is right, but not the ability to carry it out. For I do not do the good I want, but the evil I do not want is what I keep on doing. Now, if I do what I do not want, it is no longer I who do it, but sin that dwells within me. So I find it to be a law that when I want to do right, evil lies close at hand. For I delight in the law of God in my inner being, but I see in my members another law waging war against the law of my mind and making me captive to the law of sin that dwells in my members. Wretched man that I am, who will deliver me from this body of death? Thanks be to God through Jesus Christ our Lord. So then, I myself serve the law of God. Oh no, I was just reading something that explains the concept of, I guess, something close to addiction, and even the concept of relapse. And so, like, and I guess I don't have to finish. You can just probably look at it from Romans 7, 14 to 25. And so what I was just trying to say is the Bible admits the struggle that there is in this world. And we could talk about a lot that the scriptures say about it, but I felt like Romans 7, 14 to 25 shows how the struggle is real, even for someone who believes sometimes, and there could be many reasons for that. But now it concludes Romans chapter 7 by saying that God eventually either delivers somebody from it or walks with them in it. And we could even go into lens on what that means. But I think maybe just something I could add, whether it's an addiction, someone has relapsed back into it or has overcome. Like I feel the philosophy of naturalism, which is proposed by atheists, I feel makes matters worse, especially for the person who's relapsing, because this person is probably struggling, whatever the addiction may be. They keep on relapsing. Maybe they get better and then they relapse again. And then all they can be told is that they're just an accident. They're already acting as if they're an accident. But now naturalism tells them they're just an accident of the universe, that they were not really intended to come to the world, and just somehow by chance and necessity they came into the world, and life is ultimately meaningless because like nothing ultimately matters. It only matters what you think matters. And when you die, it won't even matter whether you relapsed or not, whether you overcame or not, because everyone will die eventually with a universal heat death. So like with naturalism, and I know like that's why I'm saying this issue is a very touchy issue, because if naturalism is true, then this topic of addictions is a very serious matter, because a naturalist could be able to give like for example our doctor friend here could be able to give us very many ways how we can get out of an addiction, and there could be true ways, but the problem is it would not be consistent with naturalism, which I think really the only consistent naturalism is nihilism. So I think that's the problem. And I feel like, in fact, I know that when one presents the Christian gospel, that not only is there hope in this world, but in the life to come, regardless of what that person is. Because like, when you think about this topic of addiction, it not only affects the person, it affects everyone around them. It affects their family, their co-workers, like everybody, even people they don't know, they can end up being harmed by them. And so like the Christian gospel shows that there's hope in this life and in the one to come. But with naturalism, there's definitely no hope in the world to come. And in this world, who knows what's going to happen, because it's really chance and necessity. And the struggle for it's the struggle for the fittest. And so like if you're not fit enough, oh man, you just relapse and die. That's just the best this life is going to be. So like I really feel naturalism should be abandoned, especially if we want to help people with addictions. And sorry, I've spoken too long, but like I felt that's something that we need to look into, despite the fact that I would agree this is a common problem we all share, both religious people, non-religious people, the spiritual people, the Kemet, whoever the case may be. I think we should be gentle with one another with regards to this topic, especially if maybe there's someone who's addicted right now or knows someone else who's so addicted that they are just destroying themselves. So this is not really a merely intellectual discussion, although it kind of is. But I feel naturalism makes matters worse, especially for the person who keeps on relapsing and relapsing and relapsing and relapsing and relapsing. But let me at least end my submission there. And yeah, I presume there are so many opposing comments, but that's all I'll say for now.
Okay, thanks, Charles. Now, Charles, the reason I asked that question about relapsing is because I can say no one wants to be an addict. Nobody wants to be a drug addict, because there are people who they want to quit, but the body just keeps on urging. They really want to quit, but they can't help the body. So that's evidence the human body is not designed intelligently, because they want to quit, but they can't answer that. They really want to quit, but they're unable because of the body. How is that?
Oh, I guess you remember the analogy I gave, huh?
Yeah.
Of my vehicle.
Yeah. No,
like,
but this is them. They want to quit.
Maybe first of all,
they want to quit. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and like what I'm saying is that if I already started putting water into my vehicle instead of petrol, it's going to be very difficult for me to get rid of all that water first and now start putting petrol again. And so my initial bad decisions, and it's totally bad decisions. Some addictions come
Wandalo, can I ask you a question about that analogy? Can I ask you a
Yes.
question about that analogy?
Yes.
You know that analogy you've given about water and I don't know, petrol or kerosene. Yes. A car cannot move. A car cannot move, and it cannot function without petrol. But a human being can still function even if you are addicted to alcohol. So I don't think that analogy holds.
I guess maybe you missed the point of the analogy.
Also, I
maybe
think
I can explain. Oh, sorry.
Before you explain, just you also had another explanation about another story that Dorcas gave about someone who was addicted to drinking water because and in fact your body cannot function without water. But this person died from excess water.
Oh, in fact, I didn't even hear that. That story was given by Dorcas.
Dorcas, they died. Dorcas, they died. I missed that. Dorcas, the person died. I missed that.
Yes, she died from
They
taking
died.
too much water. Yes, she was
Wow.
addicted to water.
Serious? As in someone you knew, huh?
No. It was from a podcast. It was from a podcast which I was listening to on the internet. There's a psychologist who works with addictive clients, and this person had replaced their addiction to alcohol with water. She found that if she took water a lot, she would get into a brain state which was somehow like a high. Yeah, like she would become like a zombie. So she liked that. And one day she overdid it and she killed herself.
And I'm assuming I guess, well, I don't want to comment much because I guess I'm not an expert on addictions and the immediate actions that an alcoholic should or should not take if they were like a hardcore alcoholic. Because there's also that thing of what's the word, convulsions? What's the term that is used? Someone who's a hardcore alcoholic and then they want to go cold turkey all of a sudden. There's a term. I think it's maybe Luce Veleli might know, but like I think
it's called with the withdrawal symptoms.
Withdrawal. Yeah. So like I think maybe that was, so the problem was not they got addicted to water, but maybe they all of a sudden just woke up and said no more alcohol, despite the fact they were probably having alcohol every hour of the day. I decided to drink water. I don't know. I don't know about that story, but maybe that's what killed them. So it was, the water was not the problem, because if the water was the problem, all of us would be dead by now, because I bet we drink a lot of water. But like I think this is not a case, I'm not sure how that issue of water is a case against intelligent design, but I think maybe it's important also, Maestro, to think about how the gospel message starts with the fact that we live in a fallen world, and not only do we make bad decisions, but the world being fallen, we get affected by that fallenness. And now naturalism doesn't help us, because it doesn't even explain why things are the way they are or give a solution. But now with Christianity, there's a savior who comes, the second Adam comes to undo what happened in the fall. So that's what I would say. So I'm like, what I'm presenting is that naturalism is the problem. It's making matters worse for that hardcore alcoholic or hardcore whatever. So that's what I'd say.
Okay, thanks, Charles. Okay, before Eugene speaks, this is a question. In fact, Eugene can answer this question. I'll ask again for the members. Even Charles, you see, these drug dealers and alcohol sellers, they say, I have no gun to their heads. That's what they say. They say, it's not me, it's them who are coming. I have no gun to his head, so don't blame me, blame the addict. Now, that's just to show how the person is, it's not their fault. So now is that a fair argument for the dealer to say that I have no gun to their heads? It's them coming to me. Okay, Eugene.
Thank you very much, Muriuki. I actually have a lot to say. I think I might take a lot of time, so I think you might be able to signal me so that I won't take much of your time when I want to respond to several issues being raised here. First of all, I think initially I was logging in, but I was disconnecting. I think it was downtime or something. But yeah, I think I had a glimpse of someone who was defining what addiction is. And yes, it's very important to define what addiction is before we can now move on to issues like relapse and even the gospel, to which Wandalo was trying to veer on into. Now, when it comes to addiction, I think someone said that yes, I think it was Dorcas, that yes, and I totally agree that it's actually a disorder. It's not something normal. It's not something that people can use the word casually. And Wandalo is actually right. It's actually a multifaceted topic in which it affects everyone, whether you are religious, whether you are atheist, or whichever the case. But I'm still shocked that, in as much as, yes, Wandalo, you're very much against naturalism, and which is weird because science as we know it actually works at par with naturalism. So I don't really get when you say that it's actually problematic to an addicted person or someone who's trying to, recover, maybe trying to avoid relapsing back into, the substance use. And this said as well, we can also go ahead and try to understand that addiction, it comes with many several forms. It's not necessarily alcohol and drugs or substance use. When it comes to addiction, it's normally categorized into two major forms. That's according to the DSM-5. It's like a manual, for diagnosing some of these disorders. And when it comes to addiction, it's important to note that alcohol and drugs, that's only one type. That's only one kind of addiction. We have others like behavioral addiction in things like gambling, things like even sex, things like even gaming. For those who like to play video games, it comes in very many forms. And yes, Dorcas was actually right when she said that it has everything to do with your reward system, with the culprit known as dopamine, which plays a central role in our reward systems. And when you look at it, I understand that Ondalo, you might actually be against what I'm saying, but these are established facts that the reward system is actually the main culprit here. It's so I don't even understand how probably someone can sneak in religion or even the scriptures in it, or even the devil per se. It's all natural. And we evolved this reward system so that it comes in hand in very many forms, and when it malfunctions, because yes, it's actually designed to malfunction. So I still don't get how naturalism doesn't fit into the picture, because it actually does. And when you talk about naturalism, it's everything that excludes the supernatural, everything that excludes, things like the supernatural explanation, like, you were designed by someone who intended this and that. It's not really that way. And when you understand this, you can now be able to understand the pathways of how addiction happens and how we can also draw solutions from naturalism itself, trying to mitigate some of these problematic outcomes of addiction. And I'm saying that because I think we should also talk about the causes of addiction. When we talk about the causes of addiction, we will now get a clear picture on why some people are prone to get addicted and while others are not. Again, without invoking the supernatural or God or the scriptures and all that, I think we can be a little practical, a little bit practical on this, so that when we lay when we lay the map, we can actually be able to appreciate, even when it comes to the interventions or maybe ways to overcome addiction. It's actually a very large topic, which it's not that it's a bad thing. It's actually one of the most important topics we're actually talking about. And the fact that all of us are talking about it, it actually makes sense, so that we can be able to draw several solutions around it, because yes, it affects everyone and everything. That's what I'm saying. So I think, just apart from, let's say, defining what addiction is and maybe listing the types, we can also talk about the things people can be addicted to and why that happens. And for example, why do you think addiction happens? I think now when we establish that, we can now be able to talk about how people relapse, how people can be helped, because you can't help someone if you don't understand what they're going through, or what really messes them up, or even how they got addicted in the first place. Yeah, so that's all I can say for now. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Eugene. Eugene, and the question I asked, is it fair for a dealer to say that I don't have a gun to his head or her head? Is that a fair argument for the dealer?
Okay. When it comes to addiction per se, yes. When it comes to issues like drugs and substance use disorders, either liquor and even weed and other substance, when we start to play blame games, when we still even when as a whole world we decide to punish all the dealers, all the liquor handlers, and all the people who peddle drugs, but we fail to understand how these people who got hooked in the first place, we just ignore them because we think we are helping the society by punishing the ones who provide it. I think it will still be a bit one-sided. While yes, for the idea that, when you sell your drugs to a minor or to a vulnerable person, consequences ought to be put upon you. There ought to be consequences. But at the same time, we can't focus on that side when we totally ignore the steps towards recovery for the affected individuals. Because yes, withdrawal happens. You know, when someone is addicted to alcohol, when someone is an alcoholic, and then you want to, to take all the alcohol away from them, they will obviously get withdrawal symptoms, and some of them can be as lethal. They might actually end up dying. So it should be a holistic process. We can't just blame one party and then ignore the other one, especially the affected party, you know. And I think we will also talk about the rehab process I think as we go on, so that I can't really preempt the discussion right now. So that's all I can say about it.
So Eugene, quickly. So Eugene, if a dealer tells you that I want to have a gun to his head, what would be answer to the dealer? He says, I want to have a gun to their head. What will you say?
If the clients of that dealer are adults, and I can't really do anything about it. And we know how our society works. We know how the government works. Liquor and all drugs, they are literally, they are just products, and they have their own consumers. So you can't really shut all of them off because you're thinking you're trying to solve the addiction issue, And as we know it, we're living in a capitalistic society. So if I own a liquor shop and then I have clients, so you can imagine what you would want to tell me. I won't really take anything you're telling me, because at the end of the day, I'm doing a business and money has to be made. So we should be careful along these lines, but at the same time, we should be able to identify, those who are affected by these substances that someone sells. Well, because the topic itself is revolving around addiction, and I understand that yes, it will only make sense if we focus on the addiction bit instead of focusing on the people who sell liquor and drugs and all that, because we won't really be tackling the crux of the problem as it is. Yeah, I don't know if I'm making any sense.
Okay, thanks. So Dorcas, answer the question to a dealer. If he says I want to have a gun to their head, what would you say? Then talk, Dorcas.
All right. I would simply agree with him. I would agree with the dealer. They don't have a gun to the addict's head. The addict, yeah, they did not force them. The addict, actually, you might find that the addict looked for this dealer. The addict wanted some good weed. Maybe they're into weed. They want some good weed, so they look for a dealer who has the strain that they like. So it isn't really the dealer's fault. I think I echo Eugene's sentiments. Let's refrain from the blame games. I think it isn't about who is supplying, even though that counts in the grand scheme of things. That counts. But for today's discussion, we are focusing on the person with the addiction. Yeah, we are focusing on the person with the addiction. But in the grand scheme of things, that counts. The fact that a country allows drug dealers to exist, and the fact that those drugs are available can predispose somebody to taking them. Like in the coast, we know in the coast there's a lot of drugs, and there are also very many addicts over there, people who take those hard drugs like cocaine and heroin, because it's available. The drug dealers are there. Or in the United States, we know that in the projects where African Americans are, there are a lot of drug dealers, and you find that there are also a corresponding high amount of users, because the drugs are available, the environment is available. In fact, this brings me now into what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to still respond to Wandalo once more, because this is an atheist platform and we cannot allow somebody.
It's gone, Yani. Ameenda. Ashaenda. He's gone.
As usual. As usual, he always runs away. Well, this is an atheist platform and we cannot allow somebody to deride a common perspective. Not all atheists are naturalists, but most are. We cannot allow him to denigrate it, and we don't say anything. So I have to respond to Wandalo. Then I also was wondering whether we will talk about the causes of addiction. Was that in your plan of questions? If not, I can address it.
Okay, fine. Go ahead. Let's go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Because Eugene somehow asked that question, and I think it's important that we understand it, because how can you solve a problem? We want to talk about recovery, but we don't understand why somebody became addicted in the first place. If you don't understand the root cause of a problem, chances are you can solve it properly. Now, on Wandalo, he says that naturalism is incompatible with recovery or understanding, relapse, blah, blah, blah. But I keep telling Wandalo this, and it's like that is his go-to argument against atheists. Naturalism. I keep telling Wandalo, naturalism is self-evident. We live in a material world. We can see the natural things around us. They are self-evident. Nobody is arguing about whether we have
Dorcas, are you still there?
Give me 10 seconds.
Okay.
Give me 10 seconds.
So, El Maestro, if somebody says, Adila said that I have not gone to an addict's head, what would you answer them?
I would agree.
Even you.
There's no addict who has been forced to, because even okay, let's say someone who sells, not every person who takes alcohol is addicted to alcohol, Muriuki. Let's take alcohol for example. Not everyone who takes alcohol is an alcoholic addict, because there are people who just, I have a couple of friends who they tell me I just take alcohol once in a while, like maybe in 3 months. He can take alcohol today and tell me the last time I took it was 3 months ago. So this person, now let's go to the point. This person who sells alcohol, he doesn't know that he's not an angel to know that I'm saying to this person is an alcoholic addict. This other one is not. He is not an angel. So for me, I can't blame the person who sells them. I'll blame the person who gets addicted to it.
Okay, fine. Okay. Dorcas, are you back?
Yes, I've taken a glass of water. Where? I don't know where that came from.
Dorcas, what's up? Of late, you've been coughing of late. Sorry, but of late, you've been coughing a lot of late. What's up? Sorry to ask.
I don't know. Do you know? It happened in the Zoom meeting alone. Like this whole week, I've not coughed, but somehow in the Zoom meeting, I've coughed. I don't know. Sijui, anyway. Or maybe I could have been
The Lord is
coughing.
overworking. The Lord is overworking.
I tell you. Or maybe I could have coughed and maybe I didn't notice, But because now I'm in the spotlight, I've noticed it. Anyway, I'm back. So I was talking about Wandalo's objection to naturalism. And I was saying that naturalism is the most accurate understanding of the world. The alternative which Wandalo is proposing is one that has a supernatural element. If it's not natural, it is supernatural. We don't have proof for the supernatural. So Wandalo wants us to believe in a myth, in falsehoods, just so that we can make people feel good about themselves. That's all. No. It won't cut it. I'm sorry, we don't have to believe in lies in order for us to recover from an addiction. He's just making himself relevant. And that is actually what many religious people do. They try to make it seem as though without them or their ideology, you cannot recover. You cannot you cannot recover from an addiction, or you cannot live life meaningfully, which is a lie. It's a lie. It's just an attempt to make himself relevant. Then the other thing he did was to link naturalism to nihilism, which is the belief that life has no meaning. And I keep telling him that nihilism is not the default option for all atheists. I, for one, am not a nihilist. I oppose the idea of nihilism. I really do. Because I think that life has meaning, the meaning that we assign it. But not all people's lives have meaning. If you don't assign a meaning to your life, you will not have meaning. But that is totally irrelevant to this conversation. It's just an attempt at throwing jabs at our perspective. And he also talked about us being obsessed by us thinking of ourselves as inconsequential, and that if we hold the naturalism perspective, then we wouldn't have the incentive to recover. But I put it to you that all human beings, just like all animals, have the instinctive need to preserve their lives. We have that innate need to preserve our lives and to live a life that is full, one that flourishes. That's instinctive. Addiction comes in the way of that. And so, of course, we need to find solutions to it. And the solutions that we will discuss are data-driven. They are not driven by emotions, by feelings, by make-believe, as is the case with religion and Christianity in particular. Lastly, he makes it seem as though Christianity is superior in solving this problem of addiction. But I put it to him that I have a close friend. I actually have two good friends who have been battling addiction. There's one who is currently in recovery. She has not relapsed since 2018, I think. Yeah, since 2018, she has not relapsed. She has not touched a bottle since then. So I'm very happy for her. And she's a believer, she's a Christian, although not a very committed one. Then there's another one, for the sake of understanding and anonymity, I will call him Martin. Martin is still struggling with addiction. At the moment, he's in and out of rehab. He left a center, I think 2 months ago. I last spoke with him 2 months ago. He left that center, and he likes to think of himself as a friend of God. For him, religion is so important. It's a crucial part of his identity. And when he was talking to me, he was telling me how he was kicked out of his home, how he was relying on the goodwill of his friends, and his friends got tired of hosting him, how he became homeless, how he has so many problems. And despite all that, so many problems from his addiction. His addiction involves, I think there's something he takes that he snorts. I can't remember what it was. Then he also drinks alcohol, and he also takes prescriptive drugs. He's also addicted to prescriptive drugs. So he told me that now, at least with God, I have hope. Now, if I was an atheist like you, Dorcas, what would I have? And I told him, you're focusing on this concept. You're focusing on this concept of needing God for hope, yet you have relapsed. I'm sorry, I'm sorry to rain on your parade, but you have relapsed. This could be like the umpteenth time. I think he has passed like the 10th time for relapsing. He's struggled with this for close to 15 years, this addiction. So your God is not working. You're not accepting reality. He's not working. At the moment, you need to look at other options. And I started talking to him about the other options that exist, including psychology, behavioral therapy, and other concepts. I started talking to him about that. But then I told him that there's no straight jacket answer to addiction. Overall, the point I'm making here is that Wandalo is wrong by making religion seem like the ultimate answer to addiction. I know of close friends like that Martin who value religion and whose identity rests on religion, yet they're still struggling with addiction. So it is a sideshow, it is a red herring, and he shouldn't take us there. Now, because I've spoken for so long, I'm only going to address two causes of addiction because I think it's an important. Yes.
Okay, I know Andalo is not here, but I am sure if he was here, he would have said that that is not a true Christian.
that is that is not a true Christian. Yeah, and I always answer this question. I mean that rebuttal by saying that if we go by the strict definition of who a true Christian is, if his understanding of a true Christian is somebody who does not fall short, somebody who does not sin, and yet the Bible itself says in Romans 3:23, all have sinned and fallen short of God's glory, then no one is a true Christian because they're all flawed. They all sin. Yeah, that's what I'm feeling. Now, on causes, let me just talk about two really quickly. Why do people become addicted to drugs? I think one of the key aspects is the psychological component. I think some people have a psychological problem like depression, PTSD, anxiety disorders, bipolar disorder. You might have that psychological condition that causes you to use drugs as some sort of remedy. Yeah, it's a self-imposed medication, if I may call it that. You're trying to run away from your psychological problems. And in fact, that second friend, for anonymity's sake, let's call her Annette. That second friend called Annette was depressed. She used to have depression. And then the day she relapsed, I think it was 2018, 2019, when she relapsed, it was because she had undergone a crisis in her life that triggered the depression, and now she went to the alcohol to numb the pain. So psychological conditions. A second cause, and I'll leave it at this because I don't want to hog the limelight, is culture and relationships. I think the people that you hang around with can influence whether you become an addict. Somebody like Whitney Houston and Bobby Brown. I think it was Whitney. I don't know whether it was Whitney who introduced drugs to Bobby Brown, or whether it was Bobby Brown who introduced drugs to Whitney. But if you are in such a relationship, you become parasitic towards each other. Even when Amy Winehouse and her partner, she used to have a long-term boyfriend. They were both addicts. And they used to reinforce that habit. Even the culture of drug taking, if your addiction is that of a drug, we must acknowledge that some people get addicted to things like food. So it's sometimes not just drug related or substance related. But if the culture is such that you have drug taking, it is common, like with alcohol, you find there are people who they only bond when they take alcohol with their buddies. You hang out with your buddies, it's automatic, you just have to drink. Or you find that in that place, like in my village, there's a place, there's a family that is known for taking alcohol. In fact, they brew the alcohol and they drink it. So it's the culture that is there. It's expected, and so somebody just finds themselves in it. Let me leave it at that on the causes, and I'll continue if somebody.
Thanks, Dorcas. Dorcas, shots fired. You mentioned musicians. What up? You just mentioned drug addicted musicians. That's interesting. Okay. Anyway, okay.
Morioki, I mentioned them because we know them. But otherwise, they are, even a watchman can be addicted to drugs. It's just that you guys won't know the watchman.
Okay, fine. Okay, it's confession time, Doctors, you mentioned PTSD, depression. But then I have all those things. But the reason I don't take drugs, because when I'm given drugs, it gets worse. So I just stay the way I am. But I get urges to take alcohol, to take hard drugs, to ease the pain, but I don't. I just say those 3 words, just say no. But for real, for now, I'll be an addict. But I control myself with the PTSD and the depression. It's confession time. Okay, then I want to say now, today it's about alcohol, drugs, food, social media, gambling, sex and porn. Now, question is, can somebody say that sex isn't bad like drugs? Can you compare and say that sex addiction isn't as bad as drug addiction? Or maybe a porn addiction isn't as bad as alcohol? Is that fair to say that some addictions are worse than others? Yes, Luchavaleli.
Thank you very much, Muriuki. And coincidentally, what I was about to begin with is still relates to your question. So how I will address it, I wouldn't really say there's any kind of good or relatively better addiction than the others. As long as it's addiction, we started by defining what addiction is, and we saw that it is a chronic disorder. It's not normal. It's totally not. There's nothing normal about addiction. Okay, so. And of all the types of addiction that are there, whether it's substance and drug use, or whether it's internet, gaming, porn, sex, and all that, there's really no better form of addiction. The reason why I'm saying this, it's because the hallmarks of addiction are very well known and have been studied. For instance, when we talk about compulsive behavior, any addicted individuals who is addicted, they feel overwhelmed. They always feel an overwhelming urge to engage in that behavior, and anytime they try to stop, they can't. It becomes very hard, so they are literally hooked on it. That's why addiction, it's used synonymously with getting hooked on, whether it's drugs and alcohol, whether it's porn, whether it's sex. So if you can compare all the various kinds of addiction, they all have a common pattern. Number one, that is a compulsive behavior. Number two, there's loss of control. Like they literally can't control themselves, whether it's alcohol, whether it's porn, whether it's sex, whether it's gaming, whether it's gambling. They can't control themselves. They can't cut down, and they find it difficult or almost impossible to do so. Number three, we have tolerance. All the forms of addiction have tolerance. Like, let's say today you used to do maybe 2 cigarettes. Tomorrow you will need like 3 or 4 cigarettes to feel the same kind of high. The same goes to porn. The same goes to sex. The same goes to anything that has a probability of you getting hooked. The fourth one is a withdrawal symptoms. Like anytime you try to stop, you get some unpleasant side effects. With alcohol, you will get seizures. You will have convulsions and all that. With anything else, you will always feel off. You will always feel off mood. It will affect your mood, your behavior, and everything else. Again, all patterns of addictions are common, like they have that commonality. And number 5, we have the negative consequences. Negative consequences are anything that can harm your health, your finances, your relationships. And when it comes to all forms of addiction, again, whether it's alcohol, whether it's sex, whether it's porn, whether it's internet and all that, the way to tell if you're addicted, it's to always be on the lookout of these negative consequences. They will always cause you problems, whether it's your health, whether it's your finance, again, whether it's your relationship. So they always have this commonality, which makes addiction in itself a vice, irrespective of the cause, irrespective of the kind of addiction. So to me, I can't really say we have any form of better addiction. I can't really tell you that, you are you are better off getting addicted to porn than getting addicted to alcohol. It doesn't make any sense, because all of them, all the forms of addiction will definitely ruin your life. And if there are no interventions in place, you will always end up in a swirling whirlpool, and then you'll find yourself in even greater problems. So personally, I don't think we have any form of better form of addiction. And still on the cause, I very much agree with Dorcas's response, where she talked about psychological factors, issues like some mental disorders, yes, anxiety, depression, PTSDs. These are just ways of coping. And when it comes to coping, not everyone can access, antidepressants, or not everyone can access, therapists and even psychiatrists. So people will tend to self-medicate, and they usually go to the most available form of self-medication they can get, whether it's alcohol, whether it's weed, whether it's tobacco, or even anything else. Even eating, you can actually get addicted to eating, and it can again present itself as a vice. It can have negative consequences towards your life, towards your relationship, and everyone around you. So all forms of addiction have a commonality. They have a common downward spiral. And another factor as well, we have biological factors. We actually have people who have genes that predispose them to get addicted. That's why it's actually a commonplace that people like to say that, hii familia yao wanapenda tu kulewa. And studies have actually shown that, yes, we actually have some genes that drive such behavior, though not for every addict, but they are actually there. So some genes can actually predispose one to get hooked on something more than the rest of the population. And another factor is the environmental factors. Just as Dorcas has said, when you have the money and you can access, the hard stuff, the hard drugs, you can actually get hooked because you can afford them. And that also causes another problem. And in itself as well, it's also a cause of addiction. Yeah, so that's all I can say. Thank you.
So, Eugene, just a question. I'm talking through experience. Just a bit off topic. How do you treat PTSD with medicine or depression? Because for me, it failed completely. It gets worse. You put it on weight, you have no energy. To treat PTSD and depression, I always wonder.
It actually depends on the cause, and it actually depends on the mode of approach. For most of the people who have such disorders, number one, they have to go to a qualified psychiatrist, not a psychotherapist, a psychiatrist. A psychiatrist is a specialist who is well versed in the mental disorders, and they can actually diagnose you, because most of the disorders people say they have, or they tell you they have, it's most of the time it's usually self-diagnosis. And if not, there are also apps out there and some tests that someone just does a few tests on the app, and then they say, what, I actually have maybe bipolar, I actually have this. So it's very much encouraged that once anyone feels something is off with their mood, with their day-to-day life, with their view on everything else, it's actually encouraged they should at least try to visit a psychiatrist when they have the chance. Only a psychiatrist can now be able to diagnose you with the correct disorder, or maybe the correct problem you have. Once a diagnosis is done, because the diagnosis is done again, using a manual, it's called the DSM-5. It's like a manual for most of these mental disorders and substance use as well. So only a qualified psychiatrist can actually diagnose you. And once the diagnosis has happened, they can now prescribe you the meds. Now, the medication, again, depends on the kind of condition you have. It also depends on how you respond to those medications, because someone else's medication doesn't really treat all kinds of disorders. So again, your own psychiatrist should be aware of all this. So that's why you should be with close contact with your psychiatrist. We call them in quotes the shrinks. Okay, so the shrinks can can be able to have a heart-to-heart moment with you. They can actually be able to diagnose you the medication, and in case you experience any adverse effects from the medication, because yes, it's totally true that some medications have some adverse side effects like weight gain, some mood disorders, and some you can you might even get shocked because someone might come with suicidal tendencies, and then some medication will actually make them worse. They'll even end up being more suicidal. So once a client notices that they have an adverse drug reaction or a bad side effect, they should relay the same to their personal psychiatrist, who can now as well change the medication if there is need to. But I'm still not saying that pharmaceutical therapy, the use of drugs, has been shown 100% to treat these disorders. We also have other methods like the cognitive behavioral therapy. These are usually the non-pharmaceutical way, the non-medical way to treat them through maybe your habits, because again, it depends on the cause. For instance, if you're in a toxic relationship, you have a toxic partner who is making you have these thoughts, who is actually worsening your condition. The best solution is just leave the partner, and maybe life will turn out well for you. But as long as you're still with the cause of that disorder you have, then even if we give you all the meds in this world, nothing will really change. So again, it actually depends on very many things, from the cause to the kind of disorder to how your body responds to the medication. So in case you have any queries, I will very much encourage you or anyone who might think they have such disorders to maybe try and get a psychiatrist, because they are very much around. And per session, yeah, it might be a bit costly, but it's not that much. You can actually think of it like an investment, because after all, it's your mental health, and mental health comes first. It even precedes your physical health, in as much as they are, again, interrelated as well. So yes, I will very much encourage you to at least seek a qualified psychiatrist who can now diagnose you correctly, give you the medications if they need me, or maybe go another method, whether it's cognitive behavioral therapy. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Stefanelli. In fact, I agree with what you're saying. There's no good addiction. Like when I used to watch twerking videos or BDSM, I would take like 3 hours. So if you have bundles, you waste bundles, or you waste your time just watching YouTube videos of people twerking. So I used to waste a lot of time. So I think there's no good addiction. Okay, so I want to ask a question. If you see an addict who has no money, like these rehabs, they're very expensive. They cost a lot of money. So now this person has no money and he's hooked on like hard drugs. So how do you think such people should be helped? The ones who come from low income areas who are addicted, how should we help them? Thanks. El Maestro.
Yes, I agree with what you have said. I don't think there is a better addiction than the other, because I think the addiction, it's they all can ultimately lead to you paying the ultimate price. Because you can even let's say you're comparing alcohol, someone who is addicted to alcohol but not addicted to sex, another is addicted to sex and not alcohol. You're addicted to sex, there's a danger in you can get STIs, you can get HIV, AIDS, and it can lead to your death. So if you take alcohol, of course, alcohol can kill you in very different ways. So I don't think there is any better addiction than the others. But maybe maybe an addiction that does not okay. The it's all addictions, they can lead you to paying the ultimate price. But maybe other some addictions are not expensive like others. Like Muruki, you said, but you used to get addicted to, we don't know, twerking videos, uh,
Yeah, I would spend up.
bundles and alcohol. But bundles and alcohol, is much more expensive than bundles.
But still, I just said waste of time, a lot of wasting time, wasting bundles. It is a waste.
Of course, time also, it will waste your time.
So, my question. Someone who has no money, an addict who has no money, those from low-income areas, how should they be helped? They can't go to a rehab. They can't afford to go to a rehab. So how should we help such people?
So now, let's say someone is addicted to alcohol, let's say for example, and he has no money. Now, how will he be getting those? How will he be getting uh, the drink? So I'm asking myself.
No, I'm asking,
So
how
he's
can they be
getting
helped?
the money to? Okay. How can he be helped?
From low-income
Uh,
areas to rehab centers.
uh, just cancel them. Maybe counseling is the only thing left. Just cancel them. There is no money to take them to rehab. Counseling them is the only other option.
Like how, in my story example, like how?
Just kuwakalisha chini and tell them how alcohol is a danger to their health, how it will ruin their life, something like that. Just cancel them.
Okay, thanks. Dorcas.
Okay, I wanted to respond to your previous question before I respond to this one as well. I hope I can do both at the same time. So you asked Eugene about which addiction is worse or if somebody says that they have a sex addiction, that's not as bad as having a cocaine addiction, for instance. And yes, I agree with the panelists. I think all addictions are problematic. However, the time it takes for them to manifest negative consequences or the kind of negative consequences vary. We have to appreciate that nuance. For instance, a person who is addicted to heroin or cocaine, that person is more likely to take an overdose that would kill them instantly. Conversely, someone who is addicted to a behavior like that one of twerking videos or of porn. By the way, we are not downplaying. We are not downplaying this. In fact, I'm so grateful that you have opened up, especially about your mental health challenges. I'm so happy that you did that. Not many people are comfortable enough to share. You never know who you are going to help. You never know who is going to watch this video and they are struggling. In fact, there's an individual on our open group who asked me for a book I read about alcoholism and sobriety. It was by a certain gentleman, a Kenyan, who was launching his book. So that person asked me to share a list of rehab centers that were included in the book, and I took photos. Sorry? I didn't hear you, Mojo.
You broke a bit. Talk about two, but I understand what you're saying. You broke it, but I've understood you. I've got on your point.
Oh, okay, great. So, yeah, there's an individual who was asking for information about recovery, especially recovery that doesn't reference Christianity or God, because in Alcoholics Anonymous, they tend to talk about the higher power and the God aspect. So he was asking whether we know of other alternatives that don't invoke God. So this information will be helpful, Morioki. Thank you for opening up on what you were dealing with. We are not downplaying it. But I was making a point. I was saying that there's no addiction that is inferior or superior. However, the outcomes can take longer for certain addictions to manifest. So the negative outcomes, they can take longer. And some might not necessarily lead to death. They might not lead to death, but they could lead to a suboptimal life, a really bad life. Take the example of a gambler, somebody who is addicted to sports gambling, and they have really indulged in that behavior so much that they have lost everything. They've betted their children's school fees, their house. They went and sold it. They went and sold all the assets that they had. And eventually, because of their preoccupation with the gambling, they don't even have time to work. They got fired from work. Their partner divorced them. And now they have nothing left. They are now living in the streets because of their addiction. So even though it is gambling, which maybe might not have direct physiological effects, like immediate physiological effects, like hard drugs, eventually it will cause those negative outcomes like financial ruin, like ruining interpersonal relationships, making you an underachiever. It can make you homeless, etc. So I think we need to keep that in mind.
Dorcas,
when
maybe may I interject about sports betting addiction? It can also lead to death. As recent as yesterday, I was watching was it a documentary or was it a news where there was a person who bet with 80,000 shillings for two teams. He separated those 80,000 shillings into two, 40,000 this side, 40,000 he bet 40,000 for one team, then 40,000 for the other team, so that whatever happens, he'll still get some money. But to his shock, the game ended in a draw, which means he lost all that 80,000 and it was not his. The next thing he did, he committed suicide. So even sports betting can lead to death through suicide.
Aha! By the way, that was an oversight. You're right. It can. Actually, that frustration with one's addiction can predispose one to suicidal ideation and some act on it. And it doesn't even matter which addiction it is. You can find yourself feeling so hopeless about yourself that you decide to take your life. Thank you for that interjection. Now that I've answered that question, the other question you were talking about is how do we assist people who come from low income areas to recover? I hope, because Mojoki, you are asking us questions that are on the periphery. It's like you're scared of asking us the main thing. I hope we will eventually discuss how to tackle recovery. How do we, because that's the topic of the day, recovering from addiction. So I wish you first asked us, how do you recover from an addiction, before talking about how to help those who don't have money from low income areas. But I'll answer your question nonetheless. And I hope Morioki will get to how to recover from an addiction as just a general person, because that's the topic of the day. I think in those areas, it is important to take advantage of community support and community counseling. Community counseling or community therapy. It is possible to offer therapy in a group therapy, that's what it's called. it's possible to offer that. And because these people don't have the income for it, then we need to use sponsors. We need to use donors to assist with this kind of intervention. So perhaps it could be a non-governmental organization that has donors, or it could be a government organization that gets money from the Ministry of Health. So it specifically targets those low-income areas, and it specifically deals with group therapy or offering other types of support for those individuals. And I'll have you know that Alcoholics Anonymous is very accessible to low-income people, because Alcoholics Anonymous just needs you to have a location. It can be anywhere. It can be a hall, it can be in a church, it can be wherever. You just need to have a location, then you need to have a convener, and then you need to follow those rules that they have. So Alcoholics Anonymous is not a high status option. But as I said, Morioki, please ask us the main question. Please ask us the main question, which is, how do you recover from an addiction, before you ask us other questions that are really on the periphery. Thank you.
Chiveleli.
Yeah, I think Dorcas tackled your question quite well. I don't even have anything to contribute about it. It's like she spoke my mind. Like what however I can talk about, maybe trying to help people who have identified they have an addiction, because it all starts with the aggrieved party, the one who has the disorder, to actually accept, because if they can't accept it, now you won't really be helping them. And yes, here in Kenya we have rehabs, but we have two ways in which they can actually be taken to the rehab. Number one is the normal one, voluntary. They walk in because they themselves have identified they have a problem, and then they go in to get help. Number two is the involuntary one, which is less common, and it's personally I will say it's very unethical, because number one, it sort of looks like you are forcing the person, you're actually forcing them. And yes, it can be argued that they're actually trying to help them, because after all, probably it's a deadbeat dad or a deadbeat mom. They have kids, but it's like the kids are starving. It's like all the funds are going somewhere else, where they are like feeding the addiction with all the funds they have. So in such cases, yes, involuntary admissions they actually make sense, but they usually have some legal component and some medical component as well. But the first step is actually to acknowledge the problem, whether it's you yourself or maybe your friend or maybe a relative. They should first have to accept that they have a problem. The only way they can accept this is, for them to have realized, when we earlier talked about the red flags, we have 5 of them, and I can repeat them for anyone who didn't maybe pay attention. There are like 5 red flags of addiction. That's why even El Maestro talked jokingly. He said that not everyone who drinks alcohol is actually addicted to alcohol, and that's true. You can't usually have a friend who likes to drink maybe on Fridays, and then you say you're addicted to alcohol when it's really not impacting their day-to-day lives and everything. So yes, then first red flag is to identify it's a compulsive behavior. Like you are compelled, you need to do the drug, you need to do to feed your addiction, whether it's porn, sex, even internet, because you will actually be shocked. People are actually out here addicted to internet. Anytime we have an internet blackout, their mood changes. Like they become hostile, aggressive, and all that. And they don't know they have an addiction problem. So yes, it's number one, a compulsive behavior. Number two, there's loss of control. They can't really cut down or even stop or even try to minimize. It's like, once it's there, they do it. Number three, again, is tolerance. Like they usually have a tolerance. At minimum level, it doesn't really quench their thirst for doing that thing. The fourth one is a withdrawal symptom. It can be alcohol, it can be any other thing that affects their normal behavior. Number five, yes, the obvious one, the negative consequences. So when one identifies all these red flags in their patterns, then chances are highly that they might be addicted. And if I can talk about alcohol we had a past debate that I mentioned about something known as the cage criteria. The cage criteria it's like a small tool that one can self-assess, or even medics can use them to quick assess to identify if there is any alcohol disorder among the client. So it's called CAGE, C-A-G-E. Number one, the first letter C, it stands for, it stands for cutting down. So you ask yourself, have you ever feel that you should cut down on your drinking? If the answer is yes, you can note that down. If the answer is no, you can note that down as well. Letter A comes next. A is annoyed. Have you felt annoyed about people criticizing your drinking habits? If you're feeling annoyed, that's yes, another one. If it's no, again, note it again. The third letter is letter G, for guilt. Have you ever felt bad or guilty about your drinking? If again, yes, you can note it down. If no, again, note it down. The last one is the eye opener, ile kutoa lock. Have you ever had an urge to drink first thing in the morning before you engage on your day-to-day behaviors, just to maybe steady your nerves or maybe try to read an hangover? So if it's yes, again, note that down. So of all the yeses you have, we have like 4 letters there. So if you have 2 or more yes, chances are likely that you might be having an alcohol use disorder. Chances are likely that you might be addicted to alcohol. And if it's no all through, maybe you might not have, but this again doesn't rule it out completely that you don't have an alcohol-related use disorder. So again, that's why you should keep your psychiatrist close to you so that, they can actually diagnose you appropriately. You can't actually self-diagnose yourself and then say, but this doesn't mean that, again, to our step towards recovery, that you shouldn't acknowledge the problem. If you want to get help, you should acknowledge you have a problem. The problem is there to begin with. This is the first step towards any recovery. Then number 2 is you seeking help. Yeah. So again, seeking help, it can be a therapist. Yeah. It can be a psychiatrist. It can even be your close friends who are reasonable friends. And then the third step is develop a healthy coping mechanism towards your urges. Identify maybe healthier ways, because yes, things like stress, depression, these are things that can be arguably say they are unavoidable in life. Like, you can't really live life 100% without stress. Even rich people do have stress. They do have problems of their own. Everyone have stress. So everyone will have to try and find a coping mechanism. So if yours is maybe drinking alcohol, maybe yours is, smoking weed, maybe you can try and develop maybe better ways to cope, whether it's morning runs, evening runs, maybe having constructive debates with friends and all that. It really helps. It really helps. So the fourth one is having a close support system. That's why, again, we have societies. That's why you have Atheist Society of Kenya, the SAS-K. Yeah? That's why you have your best friends around you, good best friends around you. You have family. All of these are support systems. So at any moment when you're feeling overwhelmed, it's very much important for you to have access to such social support systems. Alcohol, drugs, being alone, it doesn't really help with anything. If anything, it will only ruin you towards your step towards recovery. And again, the fifth one is you can maybe try and create a new lifestyle. It's not easy. I understand it's not easy, but habits are really built over time. They're really built over time, and it takes time to break down old habits to establish new habits. So consistency is key. You can find new hobbies, new interests. If, for example, you have identified that you have a drinking problem, and maybe it's because when it comes to Friday, you're out of work, you always end up at a pub or at a bar, and you end up drinking. You can actually try and find new hobbies. You can maybe try to go for book clubs. Maybe you can try to go for art exhibitions if you can afford that. Is just find affordable hobbies, affordable interests in which you can at least try to distract yourself from. They can actually help you towards recovery. And then sixth one is just be patient with yourself. Recovery doesn't really happen at once, because yes, relapses are relapses are bound to happen. You can actually relapse at any time through your recovery process, and it's very much normal. So don't rush. Just be patient with yourself. Like, if you used to take, like, let's say 3 bottles in a day, maybe try to cut down one by one, because again, cutting down completely abruptly, it's very much dangerous. When it comes to things like alcohol, they can have some life-threatening withdrawal symptoms. That's why you can't really quit on them immediately. Even hard drugs like cocaine, heroin, you can't really do that completely. But as long as you have identified you have a problem, you can try to cut down step by step. If you're doing 3 bottles, maybe next week try 2, maybe the other week try 1, then half a bottle, and then you will see yourself probably, or maybe not, but at least this one helps. Yeah. So that's all I can say about steps towards recovery. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Valeli. Maybe just I can share something about casinos. I call some casinos and talk to them. Now they are saying like what you're saying, it's somebody's choice to go to a casino. It's their own choice. Then she said some go for fun. So even if they lose money, they don't care because it's not for winning or losing. It's just like it's a pastime. So for them, they go to a casino just to pass time, to have friends, with people. Yeah, but I was told also that when they lose too much, some write a letter to say that they want to have their accounts closed because they feel they're addicted and they're losing money. So they write a letter and the accounts are closed. Then when they feel to come back, they write another letter to say that they're ready to come back. So now I thought that was a good part of casinos. They're addicted. And when you're ready to come back, you come back. Yeah, so yeah, that's what I got from casino. And also, like genetics play like at times my parents can see
Morioki, we can't hear you because Musembi, you are unmuted. Musembi, please unmute, or if you want to say something, raise your hand.
did you guys hear what I said about casinos?
No, we stopped hearing anything the moment Musembi unmuted.
Okay, I was saying I talked to some casinos. Then they said what you guys are saying, that it's somebody's choice to go to a casino. Then some go for fun. So if they lose, they don't mind because it's just like a pastime. They go for recreation, to be with people. So it's not like an addiction, but some are addicted. And so now I was told that if you're addicted, you write a letter saying that you're addicted and you want your account closed. So they close your account till you feel you're ready to come back. Then you come back. So now what I got is that these are controlling casinos. Like if you're addicted, you have to write a letter for them to close your account. Then you come back after a while. So yeah, so I just got that some go for fun, just for pleasure, not winning or losing. You know, to ask also about addiction, genetics. Like at times I look at some family members of mine, I see a pattern. Like this could be something to do with genetics. So can genetics play play a role in addiction? Thanks. Okay, Dorcas.
Okay, so first of all, I would like to begin with how to recover from addiction before I answer your question, because we will have done injustice to the listeners if we don't address that aspect, which is the main point.
It was coming last, Dorcas. That was the last thing I wanted to ask. That was the last question.
Oh, okay. Then if that's the case, I will skip it, because it's just that I felt you are focusing on all the other non-issues and ignoring the core one. So if we get to it, then fine. We will get to it. Now, you are asking, what were you asking again?
Yeah, genetics. You can look at some family members and see like there's a pattern of addiction in the family. So is there a role in genetics? Do they play a role in addiction? That it's in the family line. So one time you'll be addicted because it runs in the family. Yeah. So I think my view is genetics can play a role, I believe. But maybe Eugene knows better. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. I do believe genetics plays a role in addiction. There are people who are predisposed to compulsive behavior, and and it is evident in their family. I think even Eugene highlighted this when he was talking about the causes of addiction. He said that there are some families which seem as though they are a series of drunkards or a series of gamblers. So I think, yes, it has been found that certain individuals are genetically predisposed to the problem. However, sometimes we can conflate issues. Sometimes it is actually socialization that has brought it about. I remember there was a guy who said that he was introduced to gambling by his father because his father was a gambler, and then the father taught him how to gamble. And he continued to struggle with that addiction until his 40s. Imagine, from the age of 7 years. 7 years, he would take small bets on those two games they would be playing. And he ended up quitting or recovering from the addiction at 40 something years of age. So sometimes it can seem like it's genetic, but it's actually just socialization. I am also reminded of another lady. She's a Kenyan. I'm forgetting her name. She's talked a lot about alcohol addiction, and she says she learned how to drink alcohol from her parents because she used to take her father's alcohol. Like when the father drinks, he would leave some alcohol in the bottle and sleep, and then the girl would take it. The father also used to give her cigarettes to smoke at around age 8 years of age, 9 years of age. He used to give her his cigarettes to smoke. So sometimes it can seem like it's genetic, but it's not. It's not genetic. It is environmental because the parent has caused somebody to indulge in the drug. So because we will get to the heart of the matter, let me not address it now of how to recover from.
Yeah, maybe I can mention on this Michael Jordan, the great basketball player. He used to be a gambler. In fact, he used to have debts. Michael Jordan, I remember, but he said that he doesn't care because his family isn't starving. So even if he gambles, it's legal. He has debts, but his family doesn't starve. That's what he used to say. Okay, Eugene.
Now, when it comes to issues like gambling and all that, which I'm still trying to tie the same to your first question, in which you acknowledge that yes, there are some sort of ethical, in quotes, casino houses that try to watch out for people who say that if they're addicted, they should come out and say they have a gambling problem. It's just like taking alcohol. Just as we say that not everyone who drinks alcohol is actually addicted to alcohol. Yeah. And alternatively as well, not everyone who gambles is actually addicted to gambling. What really defines responsible gambling is people who are reasonable enough, who maybe do gambling as a hobby, because yes, it's very much allowed. It's very much normal. People actually gamble as a hobby, just the same way people check liquor, just to pass time during their free time and all that. Responsible people, signs to see if someone is responsible when they're gambling, they usually have a budget for that. And this budget is just limited for gambling. They don't, shunt all the funds, whether it's, medical funds, upkeep funds to gamble. Now that's irresponsible gambling. And ways to tell if someone is addicted, they don't have such structure in their plans. Like at any moment they get any cash, any amount of cash that's supposed to do something else, something better, they push it towards gambling. Now that's a problem. You see? But anyone who budgets for their own gambling, it can't really be said that it's a problem, because casino actually have a purpose. Everyone is out here for business. Even casino houses do business. And in as much as some are ethical, I can say, but I will very much argue that quite a number of casino houses or these betting people, they don't really give a fuck about the ethics around it. Like anyone's a client as long as they're above 18. They don't really care. In as much as they'll try to advertise, bet responsibly, gamble responsibly and all that. I usually take it's like a marketing strategy. It's like, they're trying to appeal to you. But if there are any ethical betting firms and all that, that's good for them. They actually look out for their clients, but most don't do that. And you can as well understand why. I'm still trying to respond to, I think it was Dorcas's first response when Wandala was actually there, and I can actually back her up. You see, people can be addicted towards many things. You can even be addicted towards working out. You can be addicted towards, keeping fit. And when it comes to issue about how water, I think that lady is not the first one to have taken a lot of water to die. Several people have actually come across in literature. They actually died because of drinking too much water, because they have that compulsive side of it. If you're a fitness junkie, like you're just addicted to, keeping fit and all that, you're going for morning runs, anytime you sweat, you drink water. And again, the kind of water they drink, it's not really, I can say, ideal water for, hydrating when you're working out, because that water should be having electrolytes, because as you're sweating, you're losing salts. But now you can imagine you're just there with your water, with your normal water bottle, and you're overhydrating. You can actually die from it. Your brain will literally swell inside your skull, and you'll have seizures, and then you'll die. By the time they're rushing you into the hospital, you'll be pronounced dead. It actually happens. It's not shocking. They usually say too much of everything is actually toxic. And for the fitness junkies who are actually addicted towards keeping fit and all that, and overhydrating without taking the necessary precautions, without finding out if the water they're taking actually has these essential electrolytes, they will end up diluting themselves and they die. So it's not really shocking, in as much as it might have sound shocking to some people. Another one died because it was like a competition for seeing who drinks most gallons of water. It was like a TV show in Mexico, and someone died on set, like and everyone was shocked, like, oh my, taking a lot of water can actually kill you. It actually can kill you. So yes, that's all I can say about it. As I wait to maybe Muriuki, you can now talk about the ways people can actually recover towards addiction.
Okay, and Eugene, what's your take on genetics?
Genetic
addiction.
I had earlier said, you see, in as much as we talked about the causes of addiction, genes actually play a role. We actually call them the risk factors. They actually predispose you towards your addiction behavior. In as much as most of the time, more often than not, it's usually a combination of all these factors, from the environment, from the habit itself, even the genes itself. So it can also be argued that these factors don't play along single-handedly. So you can actually try to imagine someone who is predisposed to become an alcohol addict. Probably they've never encountered any alcohol, but at some point in their life they encounter a loss. Maybe they lose a loved one, and unknowingly they try alcohol because they're experimenting, as a coping mechanism, self-medicating, and it becomes a downward spiral because they don't know they actually had the predisposing factors. They actually had the genes. They were just waiting for the chance, get a loss, and then they go online. Then you're addicted. Most of the time it happens. It actually happens that it's usually a combination of the factors. Alternatively, you can find someone who is in a convent, probably it's a priest or a nun. Probably in their family, people actually drink themselves to death. But the mere fact that they don't do that is because what they did with their lives. Probably they went towards vocation and they told themselves, I won't see myself drinking alcohol. And who knows, probably that's how they save themselves. So it's usually funny, but at any moment they try liquor for the first time, then that's it. That lights the spark and everything goes down. So you can't really know. But yes, we usually have the predisposing factors, and genetics is definitely one of them. Not the only one, but definitely one of them.
Okay, thanks, Eugene. Can I say that if you have the genes, it's harder to be cured? Is that fair? That if you have those genes, it will be harder to stop than somebody else? Is that a fair statement?
I can't really say yes or no, because I haven't come across studies that try to compare people who are genetically predisposed on how fast or how slow they try to recover. What I can really tell you is that if the individual puts in their own effort, in as much as you can force someone towards recovery, but it's much better if the affected party is actually concerned and takes necessary efforts towards recovery. Now that way they will have positive, better outcomes as compared to someone who has been forced towards recovery. But to tell you objectively that people who are genetically predisposed maybe take a while to recover, I can't really tell you because I don't really know. I haven't come across such studies. Yeah.
Okay, fine, thanks. So we're going to recovery. So I'll ask that question, which is very important. It's not a joke, it's very important because what I experienced, what makes the booty so nice to the human mind, so attractive to the human mind, the booty, because everyone seems to have a weakness for the booty. Because now, when I used to watch tracking videos, I replaced mine with watching martial arts women doing martial arts or women dancing. That's how I cured myself. Instead of watching tracking, I watch martial arts or dancing. Yeah, so now I replaced that with tracking. So now the question of what makes the human mind like the booty so much? Okay, thanks.
If I can try to respond to that again, if it's true that you're addicted, I don't know if you're addicted to it, but what I know about addiction, okay, what I know about how addiction works, I can take you back to what Dorcas said. It has something to do with, the reward system. Everyone who is alive, every human being has a reward system. It's like a specialized place in their central nervous system, in their brain, that is responsible to give them innate rewards. We have the hormone known as dopamine. It's also known as the feel-good hormone. Yeah, dopamine has a bunch of roles, has several roles, including your motor function, how you coordinate your muscles and all that. Additionally, it also plays a role in making you feel good. When you accomplish certain tasks, when you do some activities, it actually gets released and you feel good about it. It actually sort of conditions you to do something and you do it very well without any fatigue. You feel good about it. Now, when it comes to things that are likely to give you addiction, whether it's alcohol, drugs, and other substances, even activities like internet, going out with your friends, having sex, and all that, anything that makes you feel good, including eating, has a high chance of increasing the output of that dopamine which you're talking about. Now, for your case, if it was booty, well, everyone has their own drug, has their own sin. For your case, it could be booty. Would else, it could be cigarettes. Someone else, it could be sex. You see? So for your case, if you're watching booty, chances are very high that seeing those videos would make you now release that dopamine. And again, Dorcas talked about it's what happens during addiction. Your brain is actually restructured, or it gets rewired. So all this jargon means that your brain is actually remodeled to be more sensitive towards a certain stimuli. So if you watched booty one time in life, the first time you watched that video of a booty, the process started to happen. You see, your brain started to get rewired. That's how addiction now works. And as you can see, when you've identified the problem and you start your journey towards recovery, this restructuring of the brain is actually reversible. It can go back to the previous form before you were first exposed to it. Same way when you started to drink alcohol, when someone started to drink alcohol and then they realized they are hooked towards alcohol. The moment they keep up alcohol, these changes start to reverse themselves. The reward system goes back to a previous state, the state which now they can't get addicted anymore. But the moment they try that substance again, they relapse. So that's how relapse works. So I'm basically giving you what happens at the molecular cellular level. We have these changes that happens. You see, the cells that produce dopamine, they will increase in quantity at any moment you engage in that addictive behavior. So before you realize, you will be more sensitive towards that behavior. That's now what makes getting off that addiction. It really makes it very hard, but it's quite possible to get off of it. Now, once you've completed your journey towards recovery, your brain now tries to reverse itself. And you will only have recovered when your brain now has completely reversed to a state where you weren't addicted to begin with. So that's all the jargon that goes on. So it's quite possible.
But Eugene, everyone seems to like booty. Every human being seems to have a weakness for booty. Is that accurate? Almost all people like it.
It's not accurate, because if you say most, can you give me the facts and figures? I think to me it's like an opinion, it's not a fact. Because yes, I do understand people can like booty, but keep in mind that people have their own drugs. Like it's like saying that everyone likes alcohol, and it's very inaccurate to say that alcohol, not everyone likes alcohol, but some people actually love alcohol. Same way some people actually love booty, but not everyone again. So it won't be accurate to say everyone loves booty.
Okay, so recovery, guys. What's the recovery? Doctors, go fast. Recovery.
Let me reconnect my earphones. I hope I'm still audible.
Were you there, Lucas? Were you hearing the conversation we had with Eugene? Were you there?
Yes. Recovery. You're asking about recovery. Now, finally, fine. No, I don't want to comment about that, please. Do not take me down that rabbit hole. I think it's so irrelevant. Oh gosh. Do not take me down that rabbit hole, please.
Addiction. Addiction still, eh? It's addiction.
I'll not comment. I'll not comment about it. That was your preference. That was your issue. You are trying to generalize it and make it seem like this is a universal concept. Please, let's spend time on more productive aspects. Now, how do you recover from an addiction? I think the secret is to concentrate on what caused the addiction in the first place. If you can understand why you became addicted, then you will be well on your way to solving the problem. So let me actually use a stepwise approach. The first step is to acknowledge that you have a problem. You must voluntarily commit to recovery. Nobody must compel you to do it. In fact, a surefire way of failed recovery is forcing somebody to do it. You can't succeed that way. You have to see for yourself why you need to quit your addiction. Okay, so you need to commit to it, and you need to understand your why, because it was what was his name, Robert Kiyosaki, who said that when your why is clear enough, your what won't matter. You need to know your why. So look at the impact that your addiction has had in your life. Consider the way it has ruined interpersonal relationships for you. Maybe you've been divorced. Maybe you have no friends. Maybe no one trusts you because you lied so much so that you could go and get money for your addiction or get time for your addiction. There's so many negative outcomes. Maybe you slept in the streets. Maybe your parents were busy looking for you everywhere because of that addiction. Maybe you lost your job. Maybe you ruined your business. You are just undermining your potential. So you need to elucidate all of the negative outcomes that resulted from your addiction. You need to keep that at the front of your mind as you go through this journey, that this is why I am doing it. I'm doing it so that I can get my life back, so that I can get my relationships back, so that I can get my job back, so that I can be a functional adult. You need to use that as the motivation. Now, aside from the mental fortitude, the mental psyche that you need to have, you also need to get therapy. And this one is especially useful for those people who became addicted because they had psychological problems. If you had psychological problems, there's just no way out. You just have to work with a therapist. But even if your trigger was not psychological conditions, you still need to have some form of professional help, because addiction is a complex issue that many people fail to deal with on their own. So you could go down the therapeutic route, or you could go down the group support route. There are individuals who meet physically to focus on sobriety, and there are also Facebook groups. I remember there's this gentleman, he's also a Kenyan. He was talking about his gambling addiction and how it ruined his life. He's now recovered. And he said that, he's recovering, because this is actually a lifelong journey. Even if you haven't indulged, you need to be aware that you are an addict, and there's always a possibility of relapse. So you must stay vigilant all the time. It's a journey. It's never a destination. You can't say that you are cured from an addiction. You just haven't used in a long time. You still need to be aware of your past. But the point that I was making there is this guy, he was a gambler, and he started sensitizing people about gambling addiction. People started reaching out to him, like what El Maestro said, how people are using 80,000, 200,000, selling their cows, selling their minimal assets in order to gamble. People started disclosing all that to him, and he realized that they needed a support group. So he created one online on Facebook, and I think they meet for gamblers in Kenya. So yes, you need to find a support group, because they can act as motivation. You can find mentors there, and they can also act as accountability partners. At that moment where you are feeling like, I want to indulge, I'm going to indulge, you call your mentor. You call your mentor and tell them about it, and hopefully they'll talk you out of it. So I think it's important as a human being, as a social creature, to have a social support system. Then let me add two more before I make this a monologue. I think it is crucial to, and before I add those two more, the reason why you also need a social support system is in order for you to avoid isolation. Isolation and addiction go hand in hand, because you take your substance or your behavior as a way of numbing some emotional pain, and often that emotional pain can be your lack of relationships. So avoid isolation, find community, the way Eugene said. So another thing is remaining vigilant. I think it is very important for people to stay on guard. There are individuals who start relaxing once maybe they've finished 1 year, 2 years without doing that thing. Maybe you are addicted to porn, and now you have finished 2 years without watching it. So you think, oh, I can do this. At that point where your guard is down is when you relapse. So you must always stay vigilant. Lastly, of course, there are several other tips that I can offer, but because I don't want to continue talking, I would say find meaning in your life. That sense of hopelessness is another reason why people become addicted. As I said, it's sometimes a response to some emotional pain or some social pain. So I think it is important for you to find meaning in your life through certain activities. Nature abhors a vacuum. If you don't have If you don't have a passion that you're engaging in, then you could quickly slip back into addiction. I feel like my friend Martin had that problem. He didn't have a job. He was staying at a friend's place. He was so idle all day. And then those thoughts would just come and he would go back to his drugs. So you need to find a passion, something that will occupy your time, and hopefully something that will involve a group, because that contributes further to the meaning aspect of it. Yeah. Let me leave it there for now. Thank you.
Thanks, Dorcas. Okay, guys, maybe we can give our closing remarks as we talk about recovery, because I think we're out of time. So, El Maestro, recovery and closing remarks, please.
On recovering from addiction. I think there is no one who can recover from addiction if they have not accepted that they are addicted to this thing and they need to change. The first thing is to accept that you are addicted to this vice, whether it's alcohol or sex or any addiction or betting. First, one has to accept that they are actually addicted. That's what begins the journey to recovery. Yeah, those are my final remarks.
Thanks, El Maestro. Black Messiah, recovery options and closing remarks.
Hello.
Yeah, hi, Anton.
Hi. You're good.
I'm good,
Okay,
yeah.
today this is a nice topic. I've been listening. It's a nice topic.
Yeah,
What
so,
I would say is that, you people, you make life complicated. For me, what I know, addiction is not a disease. It's you trying to give the body what it needs. For me, I would say that if you're addicted to something, it means that you're giving the body what it needs. So for me, I'll say this: addiction is not a disease. It's you trying to give the body what it needs. So if you're addicted to alcohol, just drink alcohol. If you're addicted to weed, smoke weed. Just don't make life complicated. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Clinton, we are saying these addictions means you're destroying your body. You see, like food is a necessity. Alcohol isn't, and alcohol destroys your body. It destroys your liver. You get, it's destroying you one way or another. What do you think?
Everything destroys your body. You know what? Like everything you're doing destroys our body. The work you're doing, everything destroys our body. Everything is destroying our body. So I don't see why we should like nobody's meant to live forever. Some we will die one day. Like one day we'll die. I will die one day. You will die one day. So if alcohol kills me early, that's like it's facilitating the process of me dying. So like we will die one day. So I don't see like why should we live forever? So like if I take alcohol, it will kill me. You will die. So I don't see like that's why I say like we are making life to be complicated.
So, Clinton, are you saying, are you encouraging addiction? Are you encouraging addiction?
Yeah, like
Are you?
Maurice, what I'm saying this. Everybody's addicted to something. Everybody's addicted to something. Somebody's addicted to alcohol. You're addicted to food. Like everybody is addicted to something. So addiction is it's part of life. Are you getting me? It's like addiction is part of life. We are addicted to something. I'm addicted to alcohol. Somebody is addicted to food. So we're addicted to something. Something like addiction is part of us, it's part of our life.
Or do you agree it's a problem? Do you acknowledge that it's a problem?
It's not a problem, it's part of our life. Like, that's why I'm saying that we are complicating life. Addiction is part of our life. Like, you are addicted to something. Everybody's addicted to something.
So, Clinton, why do you have rehabs? What's the purpose of a rehab? They have no use.
That's a business entity. People are there to make money.
They don't help.
No, they don't help, man. I don't know if they are, but I don't. Me, I've never gone to an area, but I just see that's a business. They are doing that, their business. So yeah.
Okay, Clinton, one question. Is food a necessity?
It's a necessity. Yeah, it's a basic need.
And
Eh? Yeah.
And cocaine is cocaine necessity. Is cocaine heroin? Can you hear me? I'm asking, is cocaine a necessity? Heroin, are those necessities?
Yeah, to somebody it's a necessity. To somebody, someone is like, eh? Ella.
Clinton, you can hear me? You can hear me?
I'm okay. Yeah. Nakusikia bro, niambie.
He asked you, is cocaine? Yeah, is cocaine? I'm asking, is cocaine a necessity, or heroin, or opium? Are those necessities?
Cocaine to somebody is a necessity. Like to me, alcohol is a necessity, but to you it's not. So cocaine to somebody it's a necessity. To somebody who has grown to it is a necessity, but to me it's not. So like I'm saying that we are addicted to something. Everybody's addicted to something. Everybody's addicted to something. Yeah, like I said, that addiction is part of us. It's part of the life.
Oops, I think Morioki accidentally logged out. Maybe we can listen to Juliana's closing remarks. Juliana, are you able to say something?
Yes, thank you very much, Dorcas. Although I missed most of the discussion, but what I got, I think was very meaningful, especially what people have expressed about how to get out of being addicted. It's interesting listening. I think was it Clinton who said everybody's addicted to something, so it's just life. I was just laughing to myself and thinking, yeah, you know what? Maybe he does have a point to a certain point. And so it becomes complicated, I think, when my addiction is affecting other people. I can see if it's just affecting myself. It's like, yeah, it's okay. I might as well die of alcohol as I could go out in the street and get hit by a vehicle if I was the only person affected. So I would caveat what Clinton said. That, yeah, it's part of life unless it's affecting other people negatively. As for recovery, I don't know if anyone, you touched on the 12-step program. I don't know if you had a chance to talk about that. If you did, then just indulge me.
No, we didn't. Juliana, we didn't.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Oh, okay. So I was going to say the 12-step program, it's been touted as one of the places to go for people recovering. I think there's one for alcohol and there's one for drugs, 12-step program. Unfortunately, when you look at the root of the 12-step, not unfortunately, but in the 12-step program, there are some religious connotations in there. In fact, I was just reading something, I think about a month ago, where this employer told the employee that for you to come back to work after you've been addicted, after you've recovered, you must start attending the 12-step program. And this employee was able to plead his case and say you are discriminating against my beliefs because I'm not religious, and the 12-step program has religious connotations to it. So he was able to win that way. So I think the 12-step program, from what I can understand, it's really good, but there's some religious connotations to that. And so it's, I guess, just depending on whether people are concerned about the religiosity of it. It might not be so obvious, but it is there. Would maybe perhaps limit its usefulness to the non-religious people, or perhaps they can overlook the religiosity to get through the program, because the 12-step program is sort of like it's sort of like a buddy system. I think Doc has talked about having someone you can talk to. And so the 12-step program also encourages, part of it encourages reaching out, encourages what you have to do. You walk through 12 steps. I don't know all of them off by head, but some of the steps include going back and asking for restitution from the people that you wronged when you were maybe under influence and alcohol. So be that your family or your friends or your neighbors that you treated very badly. As part of one of the steps is you go back and admit, apologize, ask for the forgiveness. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. So generally it is, I think, a good program. Hopefully one of these days when you have a discussion, we can look at it thoroughly and try to ignore the religiosity. So having said that, I think this was a really good topic. I missed most of it, so I will be YouTubing it sometime later this week or this weekend to see what I missed. And thank you so much, Miyuki, and thanks for all who contributed that I was able to sort of listen to. Thanks.
Well said, Juliana. Eugene, do you have some closing remarks?
Yeah, thank you very much, Dorcas. Apparently, I should also thank Juliana. She actually reminded me of something I almost forgot about the issue of proselytizing. Here in Kenya, I haven't come across the 12-step program. However, they are usually undertaken by the faith-based organizations. For the more secular rehab groups and the ones run by NGOs, they don't really involve themselves with the submitting yourself to a higher power sort of thing, because they try to vouch for inclusivity, and they are actually aware that not everyone who is affected by addiction is actually religious, in as much as Kenya is predominantly religious. However, most, or I can say all faith-based organizations that have rehabs, they usually follow that 12-step recovery program to the latter, because it's all about, you should accept Jesus as Lord and Savior and all that. However, from my perspective, I think it's very much unethical, because while you're trying to tackle the issue at hand, the addiction issue, there is really no need to try to push the person to submit to your religiousness, because to me, proselytizing should even be a criminal offense. It shouldn't be taken lightly, because yes, someone has a drinking problem, but they come out of it being just zombies, mindless zombies, telling you that, you know what, I accepted Jesus, I'm not drinking anymore, I'm like, so Jesus had nothing to do with your addiction. It had nothing to do with all that. So personally, I don't take the 12-step program very well. However, it has some very commendable steps, including acceptance and all that, support systems and all that, except from the surrendering yourself to a higher power. Based, I think, on what Clinton said, I think that's his opinion. That's okay. It's his opinion. We can't really force everyone to see the problem. The same, we should even be aware, because even people who have a problem, it's very much common to deny the problem exists there as well. And I will very much agree with Juliana that yes, maybe personally you don't see a problem if you're addicted, but you should keep in mind that addiction affects more than you. It affects everyone around you. It affects, whether it's your loved ones, whether it's your relatives and all that. So the fact that it's a societal issue, then definitely that's a problem. But again, everyone is entitled to their own opinion. They should be respected for that. I think the debate has been very wonderful. Great moderation, Muriuki. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, what did I miss? I don't know what happened to my internet. What did I miss? I was Clinton,
Wow.
but I don't know what happened.
I've said a lot. Do I need to repeat really?
No,
Okay,
it's
let
okay.
me
I'll
try
watch.
and
I'll watch. It's
summarize.
okay. I'll watch.
Yeah.
I'll watch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well and good.
Yeah. So, okay, Eugene, just a quick question. These addictions are all of them. It's just dopamine. Anything else, or just dopamine? Is there any other part of the brain?
Yeah.
Only that.
It has everything to do with your reward system and brain restructuring. So yes, it has dopamine involved. Everything, including everything concerning addiction, whether it's substance abuse, whether it's behavioral types of addiction. It's all about dopamine and your reward system. The interaction between your reward system and the environment is what leads to addiction. So, and the fact that your brain actually gets restructured, it's what really categorizes it as a disorder. And when you're going by the manual itself, the DSM-5, it actually has some 11 criteria that one should meet to be established that they are actually addicted to substance use. And when it comes to behavioral addiction, there is also again another criteria that has to be met to be established that indeed this person is addicted. That's why the fact that the addiction itself is classified in the Diagnostic Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders, it actually tells you that definitely addiction is not something to be taken lightly. It's actually a problem. It's actually a disorder. And the only way to tackle it, face to face with it, is to acknowledge that it is a disorder. It's like saying, mental health challenges aren't really an issue. When we know they're an issue, people have actually gone through hell because of it. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Eugene. So, Dorcas, maybe you can close.
Yes, thank you so much, Mojoki, for taking us through that session. I can give my closing remarks as we call it a day or a night or a morning, depending on where you are in the world. I just needed to respond to Clinton's assertions that we are overcomplicating this by calling it a disease, and that people shouldn't try to recover from addiction. They should just indulge in their addiction. I think Clinton has missed the point, because when we defined addiction, we said it is the inability to control the use or behavior of something to the point of causing physical or mental harm. So it's a problem. Addiction is a problem because it causes physical or mental harm, or even relational, sociological harm. It ruins your brain. It causes changes in your ability to retain material, your memory, your cognition. It can even cause anxiety or depression when you're not taking that addictive thing. Your dopamine levels go down. It causes those brain changes. It can cause accidents or injuries. If you're addicted to alcohol and you drive, you could cause an accident, or even if it's not driving, you could be trying to cook and then you burn your house because you're addicted to the drug. It could cause financial ruin. El Maestro gave us the example of the gambler who took his life because he bet all the money he had, probably for school fees and for other more important things in his life. It ruins your interpersonal relationships because you lie to the people around you in order to get money to fund your addiction. Or if it is something that involves other people, like if it's like a sex addiction or a porn addiction, it can ruin your ability to have regular sex with just one partner. You can have organ damage from things like alcohol, cocaine. You can have seizures or strokes, which eventually kill you when you take a drug overdose. You can have you can be generally a dysfunctional adult. You can't keep a job. You can't be depended on to show up, let's say for a Zoom meeting or for the video shoot or for the hangout or for any other thing. If you have a deceased relative and you need to plan for the funeral, you can't be counted on because you are preoccupied with your addiction. In other words, your life is suboptimal. We all want to flourish. We all want well-being. So if there's something that is ruining our well-being, we can't say it's okay, that continue feeding your addiction. No, we have to solve that problem. So I think that is my closing remark.
Doctor's left. Is he there, my left? He left, eh? Clinton, is he there?
He's there. He's here.
Clinton, just Clinton, you're there. Clinton, are you there?
Yeah, so anyway, he's here.
Yeah, I'm there.
So it's okay. Oh, you're there.
Okay.
Well, is heroin a necessity? Heroin, is it a necessity? Heroin. That's what I asked before I left.
Maroki, you
Is
asked
heroin
him
a
these
necessity?
questions, and you asked him these questions and he answered. Didn't
I can't.
he?
What did he say? I can't. What did he say? You know, when I left, what was the answer for heroin? I can't remember.
He said
He
that
just
it is.
Clinton answered that. Yeah.
Mario, you said you'll watch. You're going to watch. I answered that. You want.
Okay, I'll watch. Okay, fine. I'll watch. Okay, I'll watch. Cool. Okay.
Yeah. He said that it is because the person needs it. But I've given him my response. Anyway, thank you everyone for your participation. I'd particularly like to give a shout out to Licheveleli because he has a scientific background, a medical background. So he brought that angle to the discussion. Thank you so much for what you shared. Thank you, Wandalo, for those few minutes you gave us. You ran away in the heat of the moment. I wish you stayed on. You really need to find a way of staying more in these discussions, Wandalo. Thank you, El Maestro, for those examples that you've given. Thank you. Who else spoke that might have left? I think there were some comments down there by Musembi and ex-Pastor Stano. Thank you, Juliana. And of course, you, Muriuki, for your questions and everything that you did during the discussion. But please, don't ask us about booty again. Don't overgeneralize and say that why are people obsessed with booty? That's your problem. That's your thing. You find answers to it. Please don't make it universal. But that said, it was a very interesting discussion. You took it up. You took up this moderation role at the last minute. It was sudden. So thank you. And guys, have a lovely day, night, or morning ahead. We'll see you next week.
See you next week, everyone. Take care.
Bye.